Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, Olúwa mi ò dìde ojú ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Ashen's the Ashen Forge.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. How are y'all doing?
Great, doing all right.
Well, we missed last week. My fault. I got sick and I couldn't speak, so I actually lost my voice for about a week. Solid week of lost voice. It was really weird, but I am back now, and we have caravans to kind of jump into. Finally had the stream that everyone's been waiting for. So before we get into that, what y'all been up to?
Everything.
Being busy with life for the most part. I didn't really hit up any of the Halloween events, honestly, for most games. Cryptarch was free. I've been playing that just a little bit here and there. It's all right. It's not blowing my socks off. It's not inspiring me to play it 10 more times, but it's kind of cool and novel and interesting in its own way. Other than that, interested in seeing what's going on with that other Game Packs Day that we've been following, and just kind of interested in talking about the sort of fun stuff that we just got to see in the last live stream.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of games in alpha and beta, and just getting announced. I think my new game to watch is Ghost, which is being developed by Ghostcrawler from WoW and a bunch of other people from Blizzard and Riot Games. One of the things, I'll get there in a little bit, pretty soon, I think. But yeah, there's lots of games coming out.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Actually, another one, Playable Worlds as well, which has a lot of people in there that you would know. They actually do some live stuff every so often. People should join. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Right now is a very interesting time, especially when you start to think, really, holidays are usually when we have sort of a lack of stuff. But can't really speak about things, but you've had Throne and Liberty testing, Blue Protocol testing. They've announced PAX Day is going to start, the 14th? Actually, 3 games are going to start on the 14th for testing. PAX Day, which has no NDA. Terrasland, which is the sort of WoW clone from, was it Tencent?
Chinese WoW clone. Mm-hmm.
And then what's the other? Oh, Perfect New World, which everyone always laughs about, New World and Perfect, all these things.
Wait, Perfect New World?
Yes.
Perfect New World. That's right.
The follow-up to Perfect World. Also on the 14th. So, and then you have like WoW Classic, Age of Discovery starts on the 30th. It's just like a really crazy time. I feel like in Ashes of Creation, spot testing is supposed to start sometime soon.
Before 2030.
Before, yeah. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting time to be having fun in video games. So, but caravans, Ashes of Creation. I think personally one of the more important aspects. I know everyone focuses on combat, but really the whole point of combat and PvP is the economy of the world. So, caravans are a big part of that, and we got to see a follow-up. There had been a previous, I'm trying to remember, 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. We had a sort of early version of caravans. I think it was a mayoral caravan establishing a trade route. This one was a commodities trade route or caravan. So a lot of fun.
what is a commodities caravan?
Well, a caravan.
How is that different than a mayoral caravan? That's my question.
Yes, a commodities caravan is one that players initiate versus a mayoral caravan is one that a mayor initiates. Now, normal players are not doing it on behalf of the city. It would be the mayor launching it and then maybe entrusting other players to be the ones that do the contract or the delivery. That's the part that I'm not 100% sure on is how that's delegated, because you can't expect the mayor to go on every single caravan in case there's multiple affiliations in the area, multiple caravans that need to go out. You can't be in 3 places at once. So there has to be a way that the mayor can delegate this to other players.
I think it goes out as a task.
Yeah, it's coming from a different path than use glint from killing stuff to buy commodities and then buy a caravan and load it up with whatever enhancements and then whatever cargo you can. It's cargo. Commodities that you put on a transport are cargo.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, I'm going to give a funny little one. There's a hierarchy of who and what can push who and what. It is boats, ground vehicles, and then players and horses. Now, the one thing that I'm not sure of, they didn't explicitly say about war machines. Should you have a caravan going through a place where a war machine is going, I don't know who has priority over pushing who, or if they're on the same level and they would block each other. That would be an interesting circumstance, but can happen.
Yeah.
So that's a funny thing just about the hierarchy of who pushes who. So players are not going to put their mount in front. It's like, haha, we've got 3 rhinoceros. Like, yeah, well, we've got, story armor and mechanics to push us through. So, good job. You're not doing anything. You're just standing there. Great work.
What if I put a tree in front of your caravan?
Okay, now that's something I want to get to a little bit later in. I'm just going to kind of go down my list here because it's a lot of things that cover a lot of the stuff from the show. And obviously, we can put things in wherever, as we want to talk about them. So it sounds like you pay for things in glint, which is your kill bucks. You kill creatures of all various sizes and strengths throughout the world. You get glint, which is your kill bucks, which is the
monster certificates.
The quantity, what used to be monster certificates, the quantity of their essence that you recover from slaying them goes into your soulbound, or not soulbound. That's other people. Character bound. I mean, I think he said the words "bound to your soul" at some point, but I might be mistaken. But it's bind on pickup, and you don't trade it so much as spend it as a currency to purchase commodities. And there might be other things. It sounded like you can. This is not a rerun. Hi there. It sounds like you can not only use the glint to buy commodities, but sound like paying your taxes and potentially paying for other things. Maybe it'll be used for a source of fuel for running things on on claims or whatever. So that's something that I'm waiting to see a little bit more about, and the ins and outs of what glint is used for and can be done with it. Let's see. I'd like to have that one be maybe not its own stream, but maybe part of an economic stream to understand more about its overall influence. Yes, Killbucks, Daddy Killbucks, I saw coming up in chat there. And so one of the questions that I had early on is, well, can commodities fit in a player bag, or are they caravan only? And the answer is they are caravan only. You can't just put some ropes around a crate and haul it back to town. No. If it's an undestroyed resource, if you didn't do targeted attacks to destroy the resources, once the caravan's been taken down and there's no one else protecting it, or not enough people to stop you from trying to mess with things, I would imagine, you can start popping the resource containers open, and you're going to get some amount of resources. Now, the way he described it is the resources are stepped on once for the act of destroying the caravan and the damage it took from that, and then it's stepped on again for the act of cracking it open as a looter. So not only will you get your stolen or corrupted glint from the actions that you've taken, which I guess you take those to the black market, you're also going to be getting the diminished amount of what the resources could have been. So let's say the Winstead resources, it was a specific kind of wool and a specific kind of iron, and or like in the example we saw in the game, there are the two epic meat crates. Well, you're maybe not necessarily going to get the actual value of those things in the sell value you can use elsewhere, but if you crack it open, you should be getting some high quality meat products that are specific to the Winstead area, and that might be of more value than trying to get the actual resource crate itself. It's like, hey, I just want to get resources out of this thing. And I think another reason why they're doing the system this way is to accommodate a scalable amount of players, that if you have 5 players do it, all 5 of them are going to be able to loot the thing you cracked open and get their loot from it. And then if you've got 20 players that came through and sacked the place, they're all going to be able to get their share. It might be a diminished amount of share or not. But I think that's part of the reason why they've kind of done it in this way, instead of one player just sticking a whole barrel in their backpack and, hobbling back to town with it. It's like, yeah, don't man me, I'm a hunchback.
It's an interesting point. So for those of you who aren't, I assume everyone that watches this has already seen this video, but what he's referring to is, as you siege a caravan, if you're successful, it becomes wreckage. That wreckage then has commodities that you can either call in your own caravan to transport them away for you.
Actually, it has cargo. It has cargo that you can call in.
Yeah.
Commodities are inside the cargo, but it's going to drop cargo.
Yeah. And so you can call a caravan in from a node. It's going to take time to arrive and load up and go, or you can bust it open and take things just with you. Of course, the initial death of the caravan loses some of the commodities just to the game itself as a way to pull things out. And then, as Neuro's pointing out, if you crack it open, you lose more. It's interesting to see, if people are because you don't have to be in a group to sign up. Like, you can just sign up. Like, you can be in a massive guild, Neuro, and you are going out to go take down a caravan. I could just join along. That's going to have some interesting interactions where you're like, well, no, we're going to call in a caravan. I'm like, no, I want to bust this open. And I assume that will then also lead to some PvP, which is, again, part of what they're looking for. But yeah, an interesting, I don't know how I feel about the whole system, but
I mean, I just kind of look at it, it's like, oh, we got another sucker at the town gate. Start hauling out the next one. We're looking at 6 strong. Make sure they're at least 2 tall. It's like, okay, great. So you get a 2x6 out there, and you go loot what remains and just bring it back through the finish line. The fun thing about it, because they will be registered as Winstead resources, you will get the Winstead transport value. So if you wanted to stash them and then transport them further down later to get more value out of it, sure, go right ahead. You've looted those resources. You straight took them. maybe they've gotten resources from three towns away, and you've got a much bigger bounty out of your stealings here.
Yeah.
What of the answers?
I've got a thing that I wonder about is if they're actually going to denote a mayorally employed caravan and its crew from ones that are privately deployed by players, so you can tell, oh, hey, this belongs to this town, it's headed to that town. We do want to sabotage this one. Or likewise, you see, oh, wait, it's the one going from this town to that town. We really want this trade route to get strengthened, so we're going to defend it. And being able to make that sort of an informed decision.
That's part of the user interface. He answered that question. Stephen answered that question, yes.
Okay.
And then, so one of the answers we had that we were theory crafting about our last episode was how many vehicles can be in the caravan, and it is a caravan, so that answer is there could be several. But as we were talking now, I'm wondering how far behind could you keep an empty caravan, or a caravan that maybe only has one cargo, so that you're just traipsing along behind the primary caravan, just far enough so if the first one is destroyed, you're there to pick up the cargo and kind of do a relay race.
That's interesting. I didn't think of that. Well, could you put it on an existing one? You wouldn't have to call in a caravan.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole thing. Is they were saying that the opposite side, the attackers, could bring a caravan and put it on. So I'm sure if you're from this defending side,
I mean, I thought they said you had to call in an empty caravan. You could just roam with one.
No, I don't know that you can't deploy an empty caravan specifically for that purpose and have it in reserve.
I had actually asked this on stream. Yeah, I had asked on stream whether, was there a time limit that caravans existed, or a range? Like, could you just spawn one and just go forever, like 2 hours out, just prancing around? Or is there like a despawn? I mean, they didn't answer that, so.
But this wouldn't be
only
forever.
It's left idle. If it's left idle for like 20 to 30 minutes, then it despawns. But short of that, anybody can literally get in the seat and start driving it once the permissions cooldown has faded away in like 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. So it is something where people are able to hijack it. If it's just left behind, it is definitely not, just going to despawn and that's that. You can take it. You can take it if it's empty, if it's damaged, whatever, you're taking it. It's fine. You can take it. At the very least, even if it has no cargo in it, it might have some upgrades. You'd still be able to grab those off of it. They didn't say in the video, but I would presume that the upgrades that you put into a caravan and manage to get to another caravansary, you would be able to keep those upgrades. I think so. Making them as a one-time use item sounds brutal. It's not outside of the realm of what they would do in this game. I just think that sucks.
Yeah, I would think that you should still be able to keep everything on the caravan as long as it doesn't get destroyed.
Which I actually like as the risk reward, because if you've killed the rest of the crew, the driver is effectively defenseless, though they have super jacked up defense and resistance to CC, immunity to CC while they're in the driver's seat. That doesn't mean they aren't immune to a good old beatdown and direct damage blasting. So if you kill the driver, if you kill all the designated drivers, and then whittle away at the rest of the defenders, you'll eventually be able to get the permissions to take that thing. And then if you take that back, not only do you get the cargo, but you might get some epic upgrades they put on that thing, and all of a sudden, you and your posse have some nice wheels to move some cargo around.
Yeah, so theoretically, if Steven's vehicle had been destroyed, Bucky would probably have been able to get there faster than the attacking enemy side. He would have been able to get there with his caravan to pick up dropped cargo. Although,
to an extent, I think he was full with his default thing that only had 2 slots. So he
I was
couldn't
going to
have
say
gotten
his
mine.
vehicle, yeah, and it had no armor and no, defense on it, so it
It's
would
not
not
the
have
armor
lasted
that's the
long enough.
problem. No, even if nothing else was attacking it, it was just the fact that it didn't have the big cargo
No,
runner.
I'm saying Bucky is a poor example in any case because he had the slower mount. He had, just a default and no defenses on it. So his caravan, his vehicle would not have lasted long in any case, even if he had room for it. But that's what I'm saying. Ostensibly, if you're far enough behind, you could possibly be able to pick up some of the dropped cargo if you left around the same time. You're just far enough back that they don't destroy yours immediately at the same time they destroy the first one. But we'll have to see what strategies people use.
There are some other things that were a little weird to me. So not just seeing Tumok, but the phrase Tumok is already back, implying that this is part of whatever size patrol range he has. I didn't see him knocking any trees over. Looked like he was following the road. And so I would imagine it was just somebody placed him there, and it was a very theatrical, oh no, Tumok, as the plot device to take the alternate road instead.
I don't think they're that good of actors. I think he was on a roaming range, and they were not expecting him to be on the road at that point. But maybe.
I don't know. Maybe
I think they staged that the same way they staged the tree laying across the road.
Yeah, and so that was one of my questions, and then the bridges were the next wacky thing. I could understand if it is a rickety bridge, there's boards pulled up and missing, there's nails missing and poking out in different places, there's no guardrails on either side. Yeah, okay, that's a bridge you have to go slow over. The bridge that we saw, as part of the road system, as well maintained as that is, you should have been going at a bonus speed. That one looked like an upgraded bridge. That did not look like your slowpoke, treacherous. You have to go at a slow pace and make sure that the weight of each board you go over can hold it, sort of thing. And so that's the part that it's that could just be a difference of art assets, but that did not look like a bridge that would slow you down. These are wooden wheels. These are wooden wheels going over wood. It seems like you would be able to move, nice and flat. You'd be able to move nice and smooth right on over them. There's no dirt that you're digging into to slow you down and give you that sort of drag and friction. There is no archway that you're going up and back down. None of that stuff. Those look like nice, fast-moving bridges. So I'm fine with there being a slow down on bridges if the bridge is so absolutely dangerous and rickety that it really warrants that. So that to me is okay. You demonstrated the system, and I'm fine with that. But please show me an ugly bridge when you do it.
No, that looked like it was a wooden plank bridge. I don't think it was like a stone bridge.
No, it was wooden plank, but it was well maintained. It didn't have
Yeah, but that,
rickety,
yeah,
rotten boards missing, all of the things that make it so wobbly that you have to go over it slowly, because if you go over it fast, things might fall off the edge.
I mean, granted, it's also not a paved road, but it could be that stone bridge will be faster than a wooden plank bridge. We'll have to see. That's a good question.
That's something. And then the other question I'll have with that is,
it could be a standard level 1 bridge or stage 1 bridge.
And then, my other question, I guess, would be, is that a cultural style of bridge? And would a Dunir bridge, for example, be made of the solid stone and just be better by default? Or would it be like a wacky cobblestone bridge the first time, and so it's still all bumpy or whatever? Or they just, I don't know, build something.
Well,
I don't know.
Speaking of that, that's kind of where I wanted to jump in. Also, sorry, I'm really derailing your.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Your list.
The list is here. I can always go back to it. You go for it.
This was Kalar Caravan, and I guess we're probably starting from a Kalar village. I keep wishing that developers would not use humans as default, where you have other races. So I would have preferred to have seen a Dunir caravan and a Dunir bridge, probably, if not Nakua. And that is one of the things that I'm liking about some of the more recent when I want to say announcements or alpha previews from other games, is that there's more diversity of culture shown in them, even from the default. Like Ghosts does a great job of not starting with European assets just in their even initial announcement. So it would really be nice to get to a place where we're not so focused on humans, and especially blonde hair, blue-eyed humans. I'm just going to throw that out there for any game devs that are out there. We were also talking a little bit earlier about female representation on dev teams, especially game designers. It would be nice to see more women instead of almost all men as well.
To be fair, though, I don't know what the actual composition of people at the studio are, just because we see a lot of dudes representing a lot of more designery things and a lot more women on more of the art and community side of things and stuff. Doesn't mean that's actually representative of the proportions of people that work there, but I get what you're saying.
Well, at least Ashes has Maggie. She does quite a lot of design.
Yes,
I think
she does.
Yeah, so, but like for Ghost, I will say, so for Ghost is that new one by Ghost Crawler, and their lead artist is Filipino, which is likely why we have some Asian influence even in the beginning art, because he's thinking about those things. But
so
keep
bridges,
going.
Bridges.
It was not Dunir, it was Kalar. It was a Kalar bridge.
Yep. The fallen tree part was also a little wacky to me. So you're telling me we have weapons and magic spells and axes and crafting tools and that sort of stuff, harvesting tools, that there's a tree in the way, and somehow we can't either destroy or break it down. That to me is really breaking the immersion that you are trying to present by having all the trees be harvestable.
But is that just a factor of it being alpha?
No, you should be able to bust that tree down one way or another.
I'm saying this particular tree in this particular demo, is that just a factor of it being alpha, so they weren't prepared to have tools that will chop it down. That's what I'm asking.
That did not seem. There was a question. Actually, it's when we went over by aka Bear, that they did answer in the live stream. Which the question was whether players would have the ability to set an ambush like a tree like this, and that's where the answer was. I think I paraphrased this, but what I wrote was, as of now, it would be difficult for players to block the caravan, is what Steven said. And this Neuro is where you got the whole order, right? Where he said, caravans have a preference. They come before players or mounts. So they would just push players and mounts out of the way. So the question was in the context of this tree and other stuff. And it was not, I was surprised at how it was sort of answered in a way that wasn't like, yes, you can knock down trees.
No, but that's a different thing. That's whether you can, if you chop down a tree and you knock it down,
but my point is,
will it block the road? That's a whole different thing. This is whether or not, if it's a design point that a barrier like a tree that is lying there, probably through an event system or something like that, will you be able to get rid of that by chopping it down? And that should be a thing if you have the tools available for you.
Doesn't sound like
I'm just saying, I don't think they have that prepared for this demo necessarily, but doesn't mean it's not possible to do.
Doesn't sound like players can do that. And if it was part of an event, I don't know why they would make the event that seems to route you a certain way and then let you cut through the middle.
No. They said you can't chop down a tree to get it to fall onto the road. That's not the same thing as not being able to chop through a tree that's already on the road.
Yeah, we're saying we should be able to use, whether it's harvesting tools or good old-fashioned fireballs and attacks that will kill literal golems and reduce them to rubble.
I get
just destroy it.
I get what you're saying, but if this is
the repulsor eats things, why don't you just repulsor?
I get what you're saying.
Come on now,
but
let's do some source engine stuff. Gary's mod. Boink.
But if this is part of an event and they're purposely directing you a certain way, funneling you by putting a tree in the way, it would be kind of dumb to then let them say, "Oh, but you can just cut through it and keep going." I get what you're saying.
One tree, then.
I get what you're saying.
It could take you a while to chop through or get rid of it. I don't think you should be able to destroy it in just
but then you just completely go around the event. So that's my point. So.
No, my thought though is the way you set it up is that when you destroy the tree, you immediately spawn a wave of heavy attackers. And so it's like, oh, you're going to go through the middle? Well, we heard you chopping on the tree, so we summoned our finest, and it's battle time.
Yeah,
I think is the way to resolve that. If you want to bust through, but you're going to have to fight for it.
Yeah, a tree obstacle isn't much different than having spiders along the way. You don't destroy the spider in one hit. I would not expect you to be able to destroy the tree in one hit. And like you say, it could open up other stuff after the tree is destroyed, because it is an obstacle or a decoy that, like Nero says, once you destroy the tree and take the time to do that, that's when your bandits come flooding in. So there should be a way to destroy obstacles like that, even if it takes a while for you to do it. But I don't think they prepped that for this particular demo. But it's a good question to ask for the future.
Yeah.
It's just not related to Aquabear's question.
Now, I'm going to go to something that I just said there. What the hell is that repulsor blast? That shit's hilarious. Come on, really? That's comedy, and it just recharges you. You can blast it again. That's hilarious. It's effective.
The group heals are also interesting.
Yeah.
Where do you need do you need a cleric? Like what do you actually need there? Obviously everything's not balanced correctly, but that thing was firing off some massive heals, and clearly the intention anyways is to have large group heals for your defenders, which just is an interesting question as to where the cleric classes play a role in that. But
Well, it's an option. Depends on who's going to be with you.
that's true. What do they refer to him as? I wrote it down here. It was I don't remember what they call it.
The other thing that I guess I wonder about that is, was it equipment that gave it those abilities? Was it the driver who gave it those abilities? Was it the
Utility? It's equipment.
Utility? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down. It's a utility slot. So you have a certain amount of utility slots, and that was one of them. The heals was as well.
Gotcha.
Right.
Which makes this very interesting to me, because I have one main question that came out of this. I always envisioned I would have a farm, I would create all of these, process all this material, and then I would hire someone to transport it. One, I don't know that I get a farm anyways because of how everything's traded with freeholds, but let's say I do. We didn't see how you can put someone else's goods into the caravan. Like, maybe that's just not ready yet, but he was pulling stuff out of his own inventory. So how do I hire you, Diggs? Like, we didn't see that. And then I put my stuff on your caravan. We didn't get to see that. So I'm curious about that. But two, Stephen had made a mention, well, if you do this solo, it got me thinking. I didn't ever intend on driving a caravan, but if you really do sort of max on some of these utilities like massive heals and the repulsor thing, and then in addition to that, you have gear on it that's really focused on, armor, speed, off-road speed, some of those modifiers they had. That would be kind of a fun race just to blast through and not take roads. So I don't know. That got me a little bit more intrigued about running my own. But
can a utility be stealth instead of health?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah.
Maybe.
And Pocket Start. Yeah. Pocket Start. Yes. I could spawn a caravan and let someone else drive it, but I feel like that goes against, like, that doesn't seem, that has to be a friend or someone I know. Yeah. I stumbled over your name. I apologize. And plus the cost, like, it was 2 gold, I think, to spawn this caravan. Keeping in mind, the big thing they delivered was 8 gold. The 2 other smaller items were just like 25 silver. So, like, nothing's balanced. But if there's a cost associated with that I would rather, I wouldn't want to hire someone just as a driver. I would rather use their actual caravan and put my stuff on it, because I would
surprise. Caravans are max level content.
Yeah. Well, I did think.
I think one of the other things that we're missing with it and that we didn't see, all of this they had talked about in the past, these robust contracts and this whole contract system. And I think part of the reason why we didn't see anything about shipping things for anyone else is that they don't have any inkling of that contract system in just yet. They're still working on that. And until they do, that's not something they're actually ready to show and demonstrate. So it might be that they're still working on the contract system or reviewing whether they're even going to use it in that form.
Yeah. I don't know. I had mentioned, I think I had said on our previous stream as we were predicting things, that I felt like this would be something that we would find out, like, freeholds was going to be more so for the few. Obviously, in print, just in general, that doesn't seem to be the case. Anyone can spawn a caravan, but when you look at, like, success and how small that thing had 2 little small. Again, if you only could transport 2, the way they had it set up, it cost you 2 gold to spawn, and you would end up turning in something for a total of like 50 silver. So you're like net negative just from the start. So, I don't know. Yes, everybody can spawn a caravan. I don't know that it will be useful for everyone to be able to do that, especially when you looked at some of the rarity of the items that he was using to make his better. Clearly, it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of work in order to do that. But
maybe the chintzy ones, you got to move 3 or 4 nodes out to actually get enough value for what you're putting into it.
Anyone can spawn a Bucky van.
Bucky van.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's not just the cost of spawning one; it's also the cost of any equipment that's used to upgrade it.
That's my point. Anybody can do a little Bucky van that has nothing on it, one little, horse. That's going to be fine. Might not last the whole trip, but you can spawn it. You can spawn it.
I don't know. Yes, a lot of questions, a lot of interesting questions.
Well, since we're on there, the other thing that we got an answer for was PvP. Did we see PvP?
No, told you there wouldn't be. Everybody in Discord, there must be PvP. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why they don't let it. I don't know. I'd like to see a free for all session. Forget showcasing something. Just get 10 people, get 20 people, 20 employees, 10 on 10, and just let them go, and just show us what it's like. I think that would be fun to watch. So, and I'm not even a PvP person, but I don't know I just don't get it. Like in my mind, that should be the simplest thing to show. Is just, hey,
they only have 3 archetypes, so I don't think they're going to have
that's true.
10 on 10.
Yeah, lack of stuff. So,
yeah, taking the Bucky van from like the beaches with all the fish all the way up to like the coldest mountaintops where there's no lakes or anything nearby. Yeah, I can see where there'd be a lot of value in that potentially. It's just a long haul. One of the things that was interesting is the idea that components can be damaged or destroyed in transit via directional and aim damage. I'm not sure how that works. Do you damage it enough that it falls off, or do you damage it enough that you can, once it's in a parked state, go up and start looting it immediately? Or does a bunch of loot just fall out of it like a pinata and you go and access the pile of loot to get your share of it? How's that actually going to work functionally? Are you just making trouble for the other person until you manage to take the whole thing down? Is it something where players are going to have to be worried about how they attack the caravan so they don't destroy the resources before they destroy the wheels or take out the driver or anything else? What about the horse? Can you kill the horse? Can you kill the horses? Do they have mega buffs and a mega hit point pool?
I think you can kill them. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that they said it outright, but he did mention the components, and I assume number of horses would be one of those components you can add on, do get damaged individually. So even if your caravan, because that was one of my questions. I had 2 that got answered. The components, if your caravan's lost, you obviously lose those components for good, but you can also have them damaged. So you could successfully complete a caravan run, but still have, maybe you start off with 2 horses and you end up with 1. I don't know. But you can have some damage to those as well.
You have returned with 1.5 horses.
Yeah, that's why
There's half a horse.
I think you keep your components, your utilities, but you'll probably have to, once you go from node to node, you leave the one node, get successfully to where you're going, and then you're going to take that to the next one. But you'd probably have to repair at least, or upgrade.
There is no official caravan insurance. He offered that as they collectively offered that as a thing that mercenaries could do as part of their guild's policies and reputation, is insurance that they'll get the delivery done. But no, there will be no formal insurance. As of now, anything can change. That totally seems like something a merchant trade sort of city or metropolis would totally have access to. But, let them make their game. There's still a lot of systems to make, and there's still a lot of play to have with it. It's elastic. It's still putty. Those cookies aren't even in the oven yet. We haven't even thrown those pancakes on the griddle.
Another interesting thing that was kind of unrelated, but mentioned. It's not necessarily unrelated, but he talked about the Winstead and dropping off was it Winstead? I don't remember. And dropping off the commodities that he didn't necessarily have to sell them like he did. He could have just stored them there
from Winstead.
Correct. In the next node. And then, what I thought was interesting, he said, well, if Winstead node gets destroyed, well, then there might, they need those commodities. They no longer exist, which I thought was interesting, that you're going to have apparently all these different nodes spawn with different commodities rather than a region, because the region of the node won't change. The ownership of the node will change, but I just thought it was interesting that it's not that it would change with every new node, new level or whatever, and not be locked more to the region of the world.
Yeah, like what's the difference between Winstead Dwarven Iron versus Dwarven Iron from the place up the hill?
Yeah, I would think there might be regional differences based on biome as well. One thing, speaking of going from Winstead to another node, something I liked about this particular demo was the mini map and the compass that was on top of the mini map. I'd been wondering if we were going to go that direction, if we were going to have a mini map. I like the compass for New World, so it was kind of interesting to have both. But I always think there has to be something in addition to the big map, because we as humans, even many of us in the real world, have trouble. Some people have more trouble than others with navigating 3D space, but especially when you don't have all of your senses to help you navigate, triangulation can be difficult in a 2D space. So having a mini map to help, having a compass to help, is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate being able to have that sort of thing. It doesn't need to give a lot of information, but just knowing approximately where you're headed and maybe some rough details around is definitely a helpful sort of thing to provide. There's some other things here. There's talk of trying to protect the caravan with like a bubble shield or something. The answer is, well, no, you can't, as a player, put a shield on a caravan. But if you have any abilities that provide a directional sort of protective effect, those will help protect damage. So some tank abilities, maybe there will be a spellcaster that can do a wind wall. Maybe summoners have some way to summon little defensive things. I imagine like a giant squishy blue slime blob sort of thing that just happily hops along and gets in the way of shots and projectiles or whatever. Or giant marshmallow, I don't care, whatever. Just something.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering about that. Like I asked about the stealth utility, I was also wondering if there's similar archetype kinds of utilities you could add. Like maybe a bard type utility would have a song that calls in surrounding animals as protection, something like that. Like I'm wondering what kinds of utilities you could have. So having animals come in as protectors, even if it's just coming from an actual player who's guarding a mercenary who's guarding the caravan. Those could be interesting to see what tactics people take.
Yeah. There was one question, can players get local colors and decor to show where they're from? It's like, yeah, you craft it. I don't know if they also meant like the livery and decor on your caravan, if that will also be potentially a little bit color coded. I don't know what level of customization they're going to do to the aesthetics of a caravan. Maybe they'll allow you to fly the banner of the place that you're coming from, because each place will have their own little, sigil on the background for, representing that area, that node. So, maybe they'll do something like that for the official ones, like the mayoral ones. That was just from the Q&A. But then another one from the Q&A there, this was one that just goes in a very silly place for me. For the node elections doing the blind bid, it is a gold sink. You do not keep the gold. The gold does not go anywhere. To me, that's absolutely ridiculous. I like the idea that you take all of that money and it's used to, I'm just going to kind of read what I wrote here. I think it should go into increasing the aesthetics throughout the city, or maybe a statue at City Hall that keeps getting bigger and fancier with every X gold increments from elections, like 100 gold per tier level. So it's somewhat a sign of longevity to have statues in the likeness of male and female characters who contributed to the node becoming the racial type that it is, starting with the bronze bust, then a full bronze 2-scale statue, then a larger and more elaborate one at the next upgrade, then swap them for gemstones, silver, gold, regional fancy colored metals for body, clothes, details, accents. Then going forward, providing them with in-hand objects, seat throne, anvil, canoe set pieces. Those even gain more detail and decor with more further upgrades. It also means taking down City Hall in a long-established metro means there's a treasure trove of resources just in the election statues alone. So that's kind of the way I think it should go. It's like, yeah, it makes the place a juicier target every election. The longer it goes, the more intricate and ornate and fancy those statues get. And when the place finally gets sacked, it's like everyone's going to be, fighting over that stuff at City Hall, because they know that's where the biggest cache of like freely accessible loot is. So the statues and all the gemstones and everything, you get those. That's a treasure trove of its own. You just put all that on the caravan and walk up. It's like, all right, siege over. Have a nice one, everybody.
Wouldn't that lead to some potential like balancing issues with the other types of nodes, though? Like if one just kept accumulating wealth, I feel like that would be sought after more, more sieges, more, and just lead to some. I guess I've never even thought about meta balancing between metropolises, but
I would say it's no different than like a religious node that's starting to stack relics. It's like once you've got 8 or more relics, and other places stop even being able to have access to the relics they need because the relic bully has them all. Oh yeah, they might start coming for blood. They might go to knock that place over and redistribute all the relics. Sure. So that would make 2 nodes, then that the longer it hangs out and the better it gets, the more juicy it becomes as a target to redistribute the wealth.
Yeah. I want to know what happens to the bids that aren't successful. Like, is that also just money lost, or is it just the successful?
Yeah. Every coin you put in is lost to the system. It is sunk to the sink.
Like, even if you don't win, you underbid.
Don't win, you've poured it down a drain. You enter that election.
Now that just
you pour
seems
that
unfair.
in the toilet. You can't reach into the toilet to get it. It's full of razor blades and citric acid.
It seems wildly unfair. Well, because the existing mayor, it seems like you're going to create an imbalance, because that mayor can then just start wiping up on wealth while you have a harder time building it. And it just slowly starts to have this real world effect, actually.
And that's exactly why I think the gold going to the election statues is a good sort of thing, because if somebody's reign is supreme and it is under their iron fisted rule for too long, the neighbors might just decide, you know what, it's worth it. Let's just loot the whole place. we want to upgrade some places nearby anyway.
There was a question I liked specifically because of extra live stream that happened afterwards. There was a question about streamers, like, well, are you going to have any tools, to help prevent stream sniping, things like that when it comes to caravans? And the answer was essentially no. Why would we do that? The only answer that was helpful, well, it wasn't even helpful, was, well, you can always delay, you can set a delay, you can set a stream delay. I just found it hilarious because for those of you who watched Extra Life, they played, what was it they played, Dota or League? I don't remember which one they played. They played some games prior to their Pathfinder campaign, and and did not do very great, at least when I watched. And I know some of the complaints from Steven were of stream sniping, which I thought was just hilarious given the answer that they gave to their own game when the question was asked. But
what other games have solutions for stream sniping?
Well, there isn't. I don't know why we would expect there to be one. I'm just saying it was hilarious.
I know what the solution, one partial solution is, but nobody's ever done it. I've said it for years and years. I've told people at various conventions. It has been passed on to many designers and leads and seniors and whatnot. I don't believe anybody's done it. You allow the player to have an alternate output that is just the world. No UI whatsoever. You open the map, people are just still looking at your character in the world. You're chatting, you're doing stuff, you're moving things around. People just see your character standing around in the world. You don't show them any UI. And so there might be some amount of information they can definitely still discern from it. They can figure out what city you're in, sure. But that will take a lot of the easy to detect the person's location based on just looking at their map sort of stuff out of it. You have to put more effort into trying to hunt them down at that point. Using that combined with the stream delay, that's going to probably do a pretty good job of protecting you. By the time they actually kind of discern where you're at and what you've gone off to, they got to start thinking 30 minutes ahead. Obviously, like they said, that ruins your ability to interact with chat in real time. Is what it is. It's the price that you have to pay if you want to protect yourself while you're caravanning. Or the other one they said is bring a giant ass crew. Always,
that's always the answer, though.
Giant ass crew, because she's very charismatic and everybody loves working with her, no matter what the game it is. So yeah, she can gather up fantasy. She can do that really easily. I
want to see Diggs stream a caravan just to see what happens.
It's not even doing the caravan. It's just Diggs appearing and accepting to defend a caravan. All of a sudden, you have cursed it. They will descend upon it. Fuck Diggs, fuck Diggs.
By the time we get this game released, though, by the time we actually get something to release, he's just going to be a myth. At that point, nobody's really going to remember. Exactly. It's just going to be this myth of this one person that refused to play the game but tested the game, and nobody's really going to care.
You will have my NPC in the game, though, so
that's true. That is a goal.
But I was thinking when Nero was talking about the statues, I was like, oh, Phantom will get that statue built of me, and they'll just encrust it with gems and all this stuff, and I was like, oh. Any metropolis that has a statue of Diggs is going to be down to be destroyed almost immediately. So that would be a fun thing, just to even put a statue of Diggs somewhere.
Or the only reason why it's there is as a lure to others. It's like a dare, like, come bring it. We're the toughest. We got the toughest. We invest in all of our defenses and military. We're all tough. We're all max level, geared to the teeth. You want to take down Diggs? Come show us.
I recently did some NDA testing where we were asked to make ourselves invisible on Steam and Discord while we played. So it's kind of an interesting thing. They might be able to do something like you were saying, Nero, where you could just stream but make yourself invisible somehow, or not. I guess you wouldn't be streaming at that point. You could just not stream. But yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what people would want to do for that.
Yeah.
Well, we are at 9:00, so I got a few more minutes though. So it looks like you have some more stuff you're looking at there, Nero.
There was one more thing in particular, was the 50% of player power is gear. But then he qualifies that, saying, well, actually, early on, your levels, your innate attributes, and your skill kit is going to be carrying most of your power, and your equipment just kind of, gives you a little this and that on top of it. But as you get further up in your level, more and more of your power is going to start coming from the power gains from your gear, and less of it's going to be solely based on your skills and your kit and your attributes, your innate attributes. So by the time you're at max level, when you start really getting fitted out, about half of your power is coming from the stuff that, comes with your class kit and your character. And the other half is the, gear that you fine tune and specialize to, facilitate the sorts of gameplay that you're going to be getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
that makes sense.
That does make sense.
And that's when you get towards your fifth gear, you're really trying to stack all of your stats so that you can get the, they're gonna ultimate crit, ultimate stealth, whatever it is that you're building towards. So,
and I wouldn't even say that there's, the idea of best in slot is one that people need to void from their minds for this game. Yeah. It's not that there is a best in slot item. There will be many items that people will be able to craft in different regions, in different styles, with different, distributions of features and attributes that will all be absolutely amazing for the exact build that you're using. And if you change your build, you can have somebody else somewhere in the world, or maybe the same person, make something that is perfect and fine-tuned for that for you too. So that's one of those things. It's not necessarily a best in slot. You build your character in a cool ass way, and you specialize them in some really fun way, and you get the equipment built to fit the way that you want to play in a way that's effective. And if you're not doing top DPS, but you still feel like you're being very effective, and you're doing a lot of really important things that keep everyone alive and keep all the ducks in a row in terms of, keeping enemies in the right place and stuff, you don't have to worry about DPS. There's no DPS meter that can quantify your value to the team. There's no need to worry about that. And if there's a more optimized version of an item that you have that somebody might be able to craft, great. That's your new best in slot item for the moment. But it's not permanent. It's temporary. It's not Thunder Fury. You're not dual wielding Thunder Furies. There's none of that. It's you're getting cool items made. There might be legendary and epic pieces that go into it, or the blueprint itself is an epic or legendary one to begin with. It took some really fancy materials to make it, but that doesn't mean it's unique. That doesn't mean it's this, orange tiered artifact sort of quality item. No, it's just a very finely crafted piece of equipment. And it's suited exactly for the purposes that you commissioned it for, plus or minus.
George Black had a thread in the forums a couple of weeks ago saying that they should have it designed so that, or implemented even, so that a level 40 sword will always win against a level 35 sword.
I remember him saying that. Yeah,
and I was like, but just all permutations of types and enchantments you could have on a level 35 in a different region, right? If you have one that's your level 35 sword is against the frost the frost dragon, and you're in perpetual winter, and your level 40 sword is designed for desert play, that level 35 sword might beat the level 40 sword because it's not in the optimal region. What is BIS for you in one region or biome might not be BIS for you in another one. I think it's going to be or not very, but at least significantly more situational. It's not going to be just you get to level 50, you get your BIS gear for level 50, and then you just keep that gear forever, and it's going to be optimal always. I don't think that's going to be the case in Ashes.
I'm trying to remember what I had actually said to his. I don't remember.
Whatever you said, I'm sure he agreed with you.
I think he's got me on ignore. To be honest, I'm pretty sure.
You're not surprised.
All because I am associated with you.
Right.
But he doesn't have you on ignore, so I don't know. I have no idea. I don't like items having levels. But anyways, that's a whole nother show. EverQuest, I can remember having a couple of pieces that lasted for 20 levels. Like that it was just, it's what I needed. But I think that also spoke to things were a little bit harder to come by. In the early days of MMORPGs versus now, the sort of expectation of the treadmill is that every 2 levels, you're getting some sort of upgrade. Going back to Lord of the Rings Online, that's something that's driving me absolutely nuts right now. That and bag space is like, I'm getting stuff I don't want to have a new sword, like level 10, level 11, level 12. It's like, it takes me 30 minutes to get from level 10 to 14. Why do I need a new sword every 10 minutes? And it just becomes a pain in the ass to deal with. So I do miss the old days.
Just drop it. You don't have to pick it up.
Well, I just started selling the shit. Get rid of it. I don't care. But there really were. I can remember actually specifically camping this one mob in one of the areas just for a tome that it dropped, because I knew it would last me for many levels, and so I did. Actually, I was back in high school days, so I set my alarm like 30 minutes early to wake up before school, and popped in. There it was. Killed it. Ran away. So High Keep Hills, I think it was. And High Pass Hold. High Keep is the dungeon that was in that area. So it's been a lot of time there. Anyways, anything else to say?
I think there might be more to talk about, but I'd be more than happy to wait till next episode to talk about that, which maybe next week, maybe the week after. I don't know. I don't know what people are going to be doing for that one upcoming holiday and its weekend and all that sort of stuff with families and that sort of stuff. So, play it by ear, hang out in the Discord, look at the chat channels. We'll give some updates, I suppose, once we're a little bit more solid on what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. And till then, I hope everybody has a wonderful. Oh, let me not do the outro unless somebody else has anything else to say. Anybody else here? You guys have anything else to say? Otherwise, I think that's about it. Everybody, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it as always. Jump on the Discord if you want to talk about anything or grump at us about something because you don't like us for some reason or think our opinions are whack. Whatever, we're happy to defend our opinions. Do it live, do it in chat, doesn't matter. But till then, I'm gonna probably say goodbye now, everybody. Have a good one. Take care. See you later.
Only thing I'm going to add before we cut. I I want to play games with people. So jump into Discord. We're trying to figure out a way to play games with people. So I'm tired of single player shit. Anyways, as Noah said, thank you all for watching. We will hopefully be back here next week. And until then, have a good week.
Yep.